Hello everyone, welcome back and thank you for being here. Today I'm going for a different vibe of video with having the drawing time-lapse up in the background whilst discussing the theme around it, which is something some of us have had and others not so much. A childhood, which is a bit deep that. But I did the sketch in advance, so I'll quickly just mention the reference images were mostly my hands with scissors and a stock image of a child crying, which was an absolute thrill ride to look up. There. I guess I want to start off by talking about people's attitudes about having kids. People who've had kids and are parents, and those who don't have kids. This might be a hot take, but regardless if you don't want kids or you do want kids, it's always very selfish reasons behind it. Usually, like, people who want kids, it's always like, I lacked a good childhood, I want to give that to them. I want to help them have a good life, their non-existent life, but give them a good life. Out of nowhere. I don't know, I bring a new generation of people in, I want to continue my bloodline. It does not end with me. Or the really, really bad reasons. Big example, pageant mums. Ugh, horrible people. Where they just bring their kid in for like the most selfish reasons possible for like monetary value and status and be like, here's my pretty child, here you go you little perverts, give me some money. No, that's what people think when you say like, oh, parents are selfish. They like lean towards those kind of parents, like YouTuber family channels. They're like the bad parents, right? Not like, those are bad parents. But that's not to say other parents aren't selfish in wanting kids. All reasons are selfish. Like, this is a non-existent thing that hasn't come to fruition yet. And you're already sort of placing expectations on them and being like, oh, I'm gonna do this and that. You're like fueling your own self-importance in this non-existent thing that exists, right? All because you're like, I want this child to be molded into my ideal, you know? And I don't think many people can deny that. There's gonna be people that are triggered, that's a guarantee, but it's hard to deny it. If you think of every reason someone wants a kid, it's usually pretty selfish. If you've had a bad childhood, you don't need to give someone else a good childhood. You don't need to prove to anyone anything. You don't need to prove to yourself by getting a child. I don't know. There's always like selfish reasons for it. So when they say people who don't want kids, oh, that's such a selfish decision. Yeah, but it's not like implementing the selfish decision onto the kids, you know? We're not trying to mold them into anything. I'm on the side where I'm kind of in between. I don't really want kids, but if there comes a time in life where I'm like, okay, I don't know. I'm uncertain. So I kind of see both sides, I suppose, to the argument. Kids are adorable, but they can be absolute gremlins to society, especially if they're not raised in the right hands. When people don't want kids, it's usually like, I don't want them to be grown up in a world where it's very financially difficult. The world looks like it's going to end in like 10 years or so. And they've got a lot of good reasons behind not wanting kids. Ironically, it's kind of, for the most part, in the perspective of this kid will have a bad life if I put them in it. So they're thinking, I want to protect this non-existent child by not giving it an existence. You know? It's irony, I don't know, it's quite interesting each side of the argument. But yeah, that's more about the parent side of it. I think we're going to move on to something else now. Now I'm kind of thinking about how these different ulterior attitudes affect the kids. So, pageant mums, obviously like the worst example, well, the best example for a worst parent, and like YouTuber vlogs, whatever. They're obviously going to grow up super screwed up thinking their own importance is in their looks. They only bring value to the family if it's from their looks and their money. Are just gonna get used, aren't they? They're gonna think, oh, I'll have to give myself to people with very little in return. Or they can grow up as bratty. That's also another thing. I've seen a lot of examples of that. They won't have their emotions validated because they'll be like, oh, you know, you gotta do this and that. You gotta make sacrifices. Beauty's a sacrifice and all that. You're literally free, okay? This is a 3-year-old. This does not matter. Let them look like a 3-year-old, let them behave like a 3-year-old. They're not gonna go to a tanning salon. You're just giving this child a no childhood, you know? It's too much. Let them do what they want. It's crazy. So these kids are gonna grow up not validated in their emotions, either shut away or extremely like tantrum-ish because they're just not getting prioritized. They're gonna get very spoiled and things like that. In my drawing, it's not a bratty child, okay? This is a child that's really upset. This person is threatening to destroy their favorite toy. I guess it represents, in my mind, I don't really know. Do you really have to add importance to art every time? I don't know. This drawing basically represents a childhood many have received. A lot of parents think hitting your kid, that's a good discipline method, right? And threatening, just being angry, gets them in shape. They'll be in line once you mess them up mentally. I guess that's to show in this drawing that doesn't work. You're just traumatizing this kid and making them like not trust people, feeling like fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. People are destroying their goods and their safety net, so they never feel like they can be safe to open up to people. It's quite wide. A lot of us, at least in my generation, have grown up with parents who themselves had very strict parents and would like hit, insult, I don't know, whatever. And it sucks. It sucks a lot because oftentimes they don't get that knowledge of, hey, this isn't good. Let's leave the kids alone, please. It's not their fault. They're just being a kid. The whole point of being a parent is you're a mentor and you're teaching this little human to become a self-sustaining person. They're growing up to be that good adult, right? And so if you're going to make them feel so icky, like horrible growing up, it's going to make them very insecure, isolated, I suppose. It just has so many negative effects. I've had to sort of work out in my life how to sort of become more confident in myself, because often I felt I had a lot of anxiety put onto me and a lot of worry because of like a bit of helicopter parenting that I've received in my life. And it sucks that we have to, once we've grown up, we have to work ourselves out of that, whereas many kids have already been taught and grown to have this sort of confidence, like good parents encouraging like really good attitudes, when other people, their natural brain process is just negativity from how they've grown up from childhood. So it sucks. There's more effort that needs to be put in, but eventually everyone sort of gets to a point, if you work hard towards it, then you get a much happier lifestyle, and that's because you've worked through your childhood. Just treat your kids right. They won't need therapy as much as necessary. Teach them to be humble, good people who cares for others, and not to compare, not to judge people depending on how they look, how they act. You know, everyone's different. And just because they maybe grew up not fitting the mold you desired for them, like suddenly they're gaining independence and they're discovering themselves, and I don't know, maybe your once really girly daughter suddenly becomes a goth. You know, that's their journey, isn't it? And you just be supportive along the way rather than tear them down being like, this is not how you're meant to be. Like, no, let them go through it. Let them explore themselves, okay? You know, let girls play with boy toys and let boys wear princess dresses. Like, what's the problem with that? Let them go through it. Healthy parenting is just allowing them to be themselves, supporting along the way, and obviously teach good lessons if mistakes are made and they misbehave. Tell them why that's not okay and how to be better next time, you know?
Many unbearable hours later.
I don't want to dig too deep into my childhood because obviously right to privacy, or privacy in England, I feel like. Who says privacy? That's too formal. Anyway, I guess I could like surface level what my experience has been. I'd say overall it's actually been a pretty decent childhood. From what was instilled in me, I did grow up very shy. Around my family I was fine, like with my parents, but I was more shy when meeting people. I did not have much confidence in myself. Like talking to classmates, it was difficult. I did have like the friends here and there, but ultimately I was just like scared of people, scared of their opinions. School was like an anxious nightmare, you know? But I don't know, like when I opened up to people, I was like way more goofy and just myself, not afraid to look ugly or anything, because that's what kids do. I am an only child, which that's obviously gets a really bad rap, because naturally if you're the only child, you're probably going to get more spoiled. And my parents did spoil me good. But they also kept on tabs that just like, no, can't have everything, you know, kept humbling me and been like, be grateful for what you have. As I've matured, I've taken that more internally, and I am more grateful for the things that I have, the life I've lived. I'm careful with what I spend my money on. Will they actually be useful in 10 years' time? Who knows? Stuff like that, you know, little lessons that kind of actually benefit in future. I was stitchy about sharing with people because I was kind of like very protective of my toys. I was very particular with how things were set up. If they changed clothes on a doll, I got that icky feeling. I don't know if that's like OCD or whatever. I don't know. It felt icky when other people like touched or changed things up with how my toys were laid out. But I would try and allow myself to share because obviously going to kids' houses, they're going to share with you. So you got to equally give them that advantage. My parents had two different styles. I had like helicopter parenting. That's probably where most of my anxiety came from, and it was very overprotective to the point where I really gained independence very late stage. Like I'm talking actually like college maybe. Like I didn't catch the train by myself until college, and that was so alien to me, and I felt super scared to go on these things. Now I'm out here catching flights by myself into different countries, and I call that massive progress. Like, Jesus Christ, I would have never pictured that in my life. There could have been a lot of improvements implemented, so where I could have been much more confident in myself, much less scared to commit to things, less doubt in myself, a lot of negative mindset. Like, I remember in primary school, I was genuinely like depressed. I guess it's very odd at that age. I don't know. I felt super lonely and isolated until I got a best friend, and then things were fine. I could sort of like express myself with that person, and it was good. It's always been very difficult, even up to this point. As much as I'm way more talkative now in networking events where I have to be, because like modeling and art, you have to talk to people, represent yourself, that's your job. It helped so much with confidence in talking to people, but I do still struggle a lot. I just feel like an awkward little bean, honestly, especially if it's like in an area with like people of supposed high importance. I feel like the imposter syndrome sets in a lot. But I'm happy that although I had this kind of childhood, that I've been able to work out a lot of areas of it up to this point where I'm very much a completely different person to when I was in secondary school. Like the confidence level has grown so much. I value myself so much more. I've taken time to work on myself in relationships, like my career, what else? Hobbies, of course, and relationships with friends and family, like all areas of life. And it's crazy how well the progress has been. I'm really proud of myself for that. And I hope people who also had similar childhoods, I suppose, or maybe no childhood at all, were able to overcome a lot of the hurdles that they had to deal with. I'm so sorry you grew up in this situation and it's left this impact on you. But now it's your responsibility, unfortunately, to undo a lot of that damage and not let that childhood define you. See it instead of like something proud to look back on, as seeing where you came from and now being where you are now, and it being incredibly impressive how far you've worked to become the person you are now. And yeah, that's the main takeaway, really. Like, no matter the childhood you had, at the end of the day, we're all responsible for the way we are, how we choose to act, I'd say, instead of the way we are, how we choose to be as people. We take out different lessons from different areas, different values of places of our lives, and we utilize them and be better people, because after all, kindness and love wins always, honestly. And that's pretty much what I'm trying to say. Trying to think about what this piece I made represents as a whole, it's tricky to distinguish, I suppose. Like, I am all about adding sort of some kind of meaning to art, but I mostly like to leave it kind of as an overarching theme and let the person interpret however they wish from their perspective of what it means to them. Like, this is obviously a piece about childhood and like a bad experiences in childhood, but I don't think there's any like super specific tied to it, you know? That's up to you how you want to see it. I suppose on my end, I think It's more about how it's not effective to be mean to children, to bully them, tease them, to sort of manipulate them to shape them into the person you want them to be. Because at the end of the day, you are dealing with someone who's very fresh to life. And if they're grown up in mean environment, they're gonna grow up to be that, or the opposite, or shoot up a school. You know, you don't want to do any of these ways. And you mostly got to consider and look inward in yourself. Would you be a good parent? Like, would you make a child be a good member of society from what you've learned in your own life? Are you capable of providing a good childhood to someone? If there's any doubt, any, like even the slightest, well, no, just really think about it. Because at the end of the day, this is like at least an 18-year commitment to someone's whole life. You got to be extremely selfless to help this person blossom into this whole new character, you know? It's a lot of effort. And you got to be absolutely like 10 out of 10 on board for that. Most parents go in with like 40% of the energy, or maybe it's like an accidental pregnancy, so they weren't even ready for that. That's like 10%. And, you know, it really varies because sometimes accidental pregnancies have really good mums, very good parents that actually help them out and live a good life. Do you want to risk that though? You gotta be absolutely sure because you're adding someone else to the planet. You gotta at least add another decent person to the planet, you know? Be good and be certain. And don't make things you'll regret because at the end of the day, you gotta love this person selflessly, unconditionally, and they gotta feel that from you. You don't want to end up in a retirement home. You want to know you've given them a good life and you yourself is going to have a good life at the same time. You know? Okay. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm proud of how this came out actually. It took a long time to do. I'm talking months with breaks because it was long and I procrastinated a lot, I gotta be honest. But I really enjoyed the process, and some areas are more notably hyper realistic than others, especially the face. But I'm a sucker for detail. But I like it, and I hope to do something like this with deeper themes in future. I actually had quite a lot of fun rambling about this topic. I don't know. It was very hard to start the conversation, but once I tapped into my thoughts, it just all came out. And I was just like, hell yeah. There's probably a lot of points I missed, but you can always add them in the comments if you've got anything to add about your thoughts about childhood, parenting, these things in general. It's pretty fun to talk about. Can be controversial, obviously, with people who are parents, more so than people who are non-parents. I think non-parents would be more open about different opinions and stuff, but I hope you enjoyed overall. This is an art video after all. So it's not just the thoughts. I hope you like the art itself, and I hope you like this style of content. So I might do more things like this in future because it was quite fun. So stick around by subscribing to see new and previous videos. And I'll see you around. Bye bye!